Welcome to another edition of the best podcast available. Not the best player available, the best podcast available. BPA is back, everybody. It's officially draft season. It is back with the rock of the show, the man to my left, the man who towers above me. This is going to be a bit the entire offseason.
It will.
I'm Andrew Siciliano. This is the great Gibbe. Jason Gibbs, not behind the glass, right, on CBD. No, but like here, live, and in person. Good to see.
And they put me on camera in Indy. I was telling these guys, I haven't been in this stadium for the Combine. I've only been on Radio Row.
They've never let you in?
No. And probably there's a reason for that. And it's probably a good reason because I'd like to cause a little trouble periodically. But yeah, the only time I was in here, we had Radio Row over in the atrium, and it was Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, and it was insanity at its finest. And then they quickly realized they couldn't keep it in the atrium and moved it to a bigger location.
So for those who don't know the lay of the land here, the convention center is about a block over there.
Yes.
And that's where everyone sets up. That's where the podiums are. That's where you're watching CBD every day. And then really there's not many, if any, media here at the stadium for the drills. It's an NFL Network, ESPN event, and they have those sets. And then the riffraff, the media kept
me
over there at the convention center. I wasn't calling him riffraff. But, you just don't need – they don't want a scenario in which people are going up to the suites and grabbing a GM or accosting a coach. It's all the scouts down here at the stopwatches where they're doing the 40, and you see that set up, and you see the table. I don't know if you can see it or not because Gibby's blocking it. But you get my point. And then everyone watches on TV. But now you're actually in the building. Will you be working out, or do you choose, like maybe Abdul Carter and others, he has a legitimate injury, to not work out here at the Combine?
My workout was walking over here.
Okay.
There's a lot of steps.
Steps.
I've gotten my steps in. The Fitbit, I think, thinks that the Fitbit was put on someone else, and the Fitbit is questioning a lot of things right now, but I've gotten my steps in. It's good. It's good. I love this city.
I love it as well.
You can get to anywhere indoors. If you want to walk outside, it's actually nice enough to walk outside.
38 degrees today. It's beautiful.
Yeah, balmy. Put on shorts.
Let's get to the actual content. And coming up, we will talk to Cat Hickman, Browns assistant GM. Really good stuff going behind the scenes on what these draft meetings are like. Because the workouts are one thing. The Combine is about the medical and the draft meetings, like meeting these players, getting in the room, putting them on the board, asking them about that time they did something stupid in college, and trying to find out who this player is and do we want this player as part of our organization. Cat has really good insight as to what that process is like. Is there like a Pete Carroll moment where he's ripping off his shirt? Does Kevin do that? Hint, he doesn't. But what are those meetings like? Cat takes it behind the scenes coming up a little bit later. And then both Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski speak as the coaches and GMs always do here in Indy. We'll get to Stefanski in a little bit. Let's hit on Andrew Berry, who spoke on Tuesday. The number one headline, and he got it out of the way immediately.
Good for him.
I just want to say this, guys, and that is nothing has changed with Myles Garrett. We still, as he said in Mobile, do not want to trade him. He was pressed repeatedly, well, have teams called. He's like, it doesn't matter. We do not want to trade him, and it just doesn't matter. So nothing has changed. While many people thought that would be the dominant storyline here, and it is certainly a storyline, maybe Myles gets traded this week. No, it's does Matthew Stafford get traded this week? That is actually likely. Myles, not going to happen.
Yeah, between that, you're watching Kirk Cousins. The Falcons say they're going to keep him for now. The Browns are, as of what is today? Today's Wednesday. At the NFL Combine. You lose track of days. They're not getting rid of him. They'll field your calls. They'll tell you thank you, and good luck somewhere else. I think it's a great move by Andrew Berry. He's under contract. Financially, it really doesn't make sense to try to trade him or to trade him. I just think it's a great move by the organization. You're under contract. Play ball.
Yeah, I asked another GM for another team yesterday that shall remain nameless. And one of the teams, I'll just say this, that has people have speculated, well, that might be a good fit, a team that would want Myles. I said, hey, can you just tell me this? I mean, have you at least called right? Because that is the job of a GM, guys. Like you with your fantasy team. It is your job to call your buddy and go, hey, would you ever consider? And your buddy says no.
Yeah.
Go jump in a lake. And so I said to this GM, have you at least called, or texted?
How'd that go for you?
And he was like, I don't want to comment on that. I'm like, come on, you've at least shot a text. I don't want to comment. Look, they're going to get shut down if you try.
If you are a GM in the NFL, there are 32 of them. 31 of them, you're not doing your due diligence if you don't make a phone call or send an email. Just reach out and go, what would it take? And if you're Andrew Berry, sit back. He's under contract. Let's go. We move forward, and we'll cross another bridge if we have to at a certain point.
Yeah, and I keep getting asked, well what's going to happen? Guys, it's a long off season.
Yeah.
There are benchmarks throughout this off season. I keep going back. And the situation was very different to Lamar Jackson in mid-March last year, who hit send on a similar Instagram post, an IG post, Twitter post, in which he said, I thank the fans of Baltimore. It's been nice. I've asked for a trade. I love you guys. Very, very similar. Now, that was a bit different. We knew that Lamar Jackson's statement was all about the money. He was also represented by his mother. There are a lot of different things here. He got the contract. Myles has maintained it isn't only about the money, but we have the start of the new league year, March 10, March 12, negotiation on March 10, the actual new league year on March 12, and then you have OTAs, and then you have mini camps. You got a long way to go here.
Absolutely. And, I mean, even with David Njoku a few years ago, Njoku,
Brandon Ayuk last year.
Yeah, correct. A lot of things can happen that change a player's mind. He wants to see what the organization is going to do here going forward, and there's a lot of questions for this Browns front office and coaching staff as we approach the 2025 season, and we're 2 months from the NFL draft. We're just a couple weeks away from the start of free agency. So a lot can happen between now and draft, and then a lot more can happen between now and when we report to training camp at the end of July.
Speaking of free agency, Andrew Berry did say, not on the podium, but in a scrum talking to local reporters, Cleveland reporters, after he got off the podium, as he always does here, that he expects Nick Chubb to hit free agency, which, again, the negotiation period is on Monday the 10th, and then Wednesday the 12th at 4 p.m. is the start of the new league year. It's not exactly shocking. Nick's contract is up, as AB did point out. There wasn't much more detail beyond that. He did say that they would continue to speak to Nick Chubb's representatives. I kind of read, and this is my reading only, as a, hey, go see what the market is. Nick is a veteran running back who has made it clear that he wants to come back to the Browns. They have to find the right price. I personally do think that a year removed from that surgery, right, and nearly 2 years removed from the injury, that he will be a better player. It is tough out there, however, for a veteran running back. I don't want to see him go play anywhere else.
No.
We all agree. I think they got to find that number. What does that process look like? I just want to warn you, it may not be a March 12th thing. It might be an April thing. It might be a May thing with an open dialogue. But he's going to be out there.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. It's part of the business. You hope that he's back. I mean, he's given a lot to this organization. He's one of the best running backs in the league for a 4-year stretch. It's a very tough injury to come back from. He's working his way back. I think we all agree. If anybody can come back fully or 90% basically from what he had, it's him. But there's still a ways to go for him. And it goes back to there's a lot of tough decisions for this front office to make, especially from a salary cap standpoint. Yeah. That's unfortunately parting ways with Juan Thornhill and Charlie Hewlett, who had started 152 games for this organization, second longest tenured player on the football team behind Joel Bitonio. You don't know what's going to happen with Bitonio. There's a lot of salary on this football team right now, and some tough decisions still to be made, I have a feeling.
Absolutely. And they likely will happen. Joel Bitonio said that he is leaning one way, and we'll have to find that out relatively soon, because the calendar with the extended season now and the 17th game is accelerated, right? The calendar is very tight now. 2 weeks after everyone leaves New Orleans, they are flying here to Indianapolis for the Combine. And then, look, the franchise tag window, and the Browns are not expected to use the franchise tag, closes next Tuesday. like this. Let's talk quarterbacks here. On this field behind us, you will not see Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. However, the Browns are meeting with both quarterbacks here and other quarterbacks as well. There's also the Pro Day for Colorado coming up on March 19. That is where Shedeur Sanders is expected to work out. Cam Ward's is March 30th down in Miami, and the same thing. They'll also do private workouts. They will collect all the information possible. The Browns are sitting at 2, and I think one thing, Gibby, we could agree on here as we make our way around town these last couple of days. No one really knows what the Titans are doing.
No.
So the Browns can figure out who they like the best. And it may not be a quarterback. Prepare yourself for that. But we don't know what the Titans are going to do. And that's the big question mark on this draft.
There's 4 main players you'd think.
At 1.
Yeah, at 1 for them. Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, the top 2 quarterbacks in the NFL draft. I don't know what direction Tennessee's leaning. I mean, their GM yesterday was saying a couple things that were maybe eye-raising. I mean, they have made comments since they were brought into the building that they want a franchise-changing
generational talent was the word. Now, that was said in January. I think it was very intentional.
Yes.
Hey, we're going to throw that into the ether, let that get out there for 3 months and circulate.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot to do. But if you're the Browns, trust your process. I mean, you have a front office that's been in place now since 2020. You have a coaching staff that's been here since 2020. Let them do their research. Let them do their jobs. The interviews. What would you say is the interview here? What's more important, the interview here or the interview if they end up coming to the facility?
I think both.
Okay.
The interview here is definitely significant. You put them on the board. You ask questions. They're not a confrontation. Well, look, every team's different, and we're going to talk about this with Kat. Nick Sirianni does pop a shot, right? And
everything's different.
Everyone is different. Some teams are get in your face, right? Not for every player. Some teams are fun. You got to find the right mix for the right player. You also want to hear some honesty. Everyone's done something stupid in their past, right? You want to hear them own up to it, not blame others. And that goes for the play that you show on the board as well. Hey, you threw a pick here. Explain. Well, the wide receiver ran the wrong route. Not always the best answer, right? So it's how do you deal with those situations? Yeah. But the visits to the Cross Country Mortgage Fieldhouse or to wherever, it's about how you work with the whole building. Are you nice to the security guard? Are you holding the door for other people? Yeah. Not that, but it's a job interview where you meet everybody. In the building.
And it's also the research part of it for the Browns. Glenn Cook was on Cleveland Browns Daily earlier in the week, and he talked about sending people to these colleges, finding out.
Yes.
You go and sit in a bar and you go, hey, person ever been in here? What are they like? How do they behave? Are they good people? You go to their hometown, you talk to their high school coach, you talk to their high school teachers.
And he's not exaggerating, by the way. That's what you do.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of research that goes into it. And I think that if you're the Browns, you focus on what you have to do at number 2. I'm sure they're going to field phone calls about that number 2 pick, especially if, Tennessee doesn't take a quarterback. Things change dramatically, I think, for a number of teams that are behind the Browns. But I think if you're the Browns, you just focus on what you have to do. You know where your weaknesses are. You know where you have to get better. You talked about it earlier. Great. Quarterback spot, you got to have a quarterback. I understand that. Maybe it's not in play at number 2. Maybe it's in play on day 2. Maybe it's in play on day 3. Maybe it's through free agency or a trade.
Or both.
Or all of the above.
Meaning veteran end.
Yes.
You get one and you draft one.
Yeah.
But you also have to make sure that the one you're signing or trading for is and does understand that, by the way,
you're probably mentoring.
Or you might be the backup to the guy that we just can't keep on the bench in September.
Yeah.
All of that can and maybe is true. And I don't know, we've said this enough. Your 33rd pick, in my eyes, is maybe not as important as 2. Your 33rd pick, the first pick in the second round, that guy should be a day 1 starter.
Yeah.
Okay. Nick Chubb, top of the second round, right? Like guys like that. I'm not saying you're drafting a borderline Hall of Famer, but you need a guy that you put in the lineup day 1. And that pick, people always say between the first round or the second round. That's the most valuable pick in the draft because everybody wants to trade up for it. Those trades never happen. They almost never happen because you're sitting there going, wait a minute, we had a first-round grade on this guy.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there at 33. You can call me all you want Friday morning, but I'm probably taking that guy.
You're resetting the board Thursday night,
yes.
And you're going, okay, what's here? What's available? What do we need to get better? I mean, that pick is unbelievably valuable. It's not as valuable as number 2, but you're looking at hopefully 2 starters in September from your first 2 picks.
I'm not saying they have 2 first-round picks. They don't.
Correct.
But 33, and it's different because it's not a 5-year contract. It's a 4-year contract. But 33 is a massively significant and valuable.
Yeah. And again, you're talking on a rookie salary scale.
Right.
Which you have to do right now given your salary cap restrictions.
Yeah. I'll take it a step further here. If you look at the 4 teams, that made it to the conference championship, all of them had at least 5 rookies that played 16 games. The Rams had like 14, and that was the most in 30 years. So cheap labor, and I'm not trying to be a wiseacre here, as my dad would say.
No.
It is significant. Like, if you have to devote big portions of your cap to veteran players who have earned those contracts, then you need to find younger and more cap-friendly starters.
You have 9 draft picks. Might have 11 with compensatory picks before it's all said and done. So there's a lot of ways to get better real quick in the NFL draft.
I'll leave it at this as we get ready for Cat Hickman here. The defensive linemen and linebackers were on the podium on Wednesday morning, so the first time we had a chance to hear from the possible number 1 pick, and Abdul Carter, Penn State's number 11. He was asked, he said he's the best player in the draft and wants to go number 1. Great. He's an Eagles fan, went to the game as an Eagles fan with his old man, had a jersey and everything. So he's not getting to the Eagles, I'll tell you that. But he also, when asked what would it be like to play with Myles Garrett, he said it would be dope. There you go. You know what's also dope? Do you guys remember My Giant, the movie with Billy Crystal and Georgie Mirasan, right? The NBA legend, big number 77. That's what this is right here.
It's like this. It's like this.
I think it works. Like Gibby could be sitting on this rim.
I offered to sit.
But this is not. No, it's not. This is stable, but you got to, like, I don't want you tumbling into the stands.
That'd be good. We get some clicks.
We would.
Maybe a hospital visit, but that's a minor detail.
We're here for the medical, but not that medical.
We have great medical here. Our team docs are all here. We're perfect. We're good.
All right. And now we're actually going to talk to an adult on the best podcast available. We've had on Andrew Berry. We've had on Kevin Stefanski. This is going to be my favorite interview because, like, this is the real boss here. Cat Hickman, the Browns' assistant GM, here at the Combine on Best Pod Available. Great to see you.
Great to see you, too. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being here. Mm-hmm. What Combine number is this?
This is going to be 6.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And have you, like, done the St. Elmo's and the shrimp cocktail yet and all that?
Not yet.
How many miles have you walked from hotel to convention center?
This is actually my favorite part, the steps that we get, because we just came off our February draft meetings, which are like 14 days of grind, sitting, watching tape. So I do enjoy the steps that we get here now, walking back and forth. So
walking off that steak that you probably have not had a chance to have yet, right?
But it's on the itinerary.
It is. And I say you haven't had the chance to have it because it's literally all work. I mean, it is around the clock here. And you mentioned draft meetings. It's really about the meetings here. And I know fans sometimes get disappointed, well, this quarterback's not going to throw or this guy's not going to work out. That's the TV show. Behind the scenes on the TV show, this is really the organizations, all 32 organizations, first chance to sit down and meet these players. Take me behind the scenes. What are those meetings like for you?
Mm-hmm. So you're dead on. These are our opportunities to sit with them. I mean, we do really 2 main things while we're here. It's the medical information that we gather on these players, and then it's really sitting down with them, with our coaches, and talking football. With some of them, it's addressing some things in the character and the background, and we want to make sure we dive into some specifics that we've identified through the fall process and making sure that we get closer to our full picture and our full process in getting to know these guys, not just as players, but as human beings. And that's a huge component of what we do here.
I've heard from so many coaches and GMs over the years when you say, hey, how did the meeting go with so-and-so? And it's, oh, these guys are coached so much now, right? The agents prepare them, as well they should,
Yep.
right? That's why they're getting paid for these scenarios.
Yep.
So how do you cut through that?
That's a great question. I mean, it's 20 minutes. So right there, you're limited with time as well. So I think for us, it's using the entire process to come up with the answers that we want. So there's various avenues. It's not just here. There's top 30 visits that we're going to have as well. There's going to be, different private workouts or pro days that we're going to attend. So we use every single opportunity to keep adding pieces to the puzzle. So really here, it's a starting point. It's a great first opportunity, but it's just one piece of many to come.
What's the style? Are you shooting hoops like Nick Sirianni? Is AB or Kevin pulling his shirt off like Pete Carroll did famously with DK Metcalf years ago? What's the vibe?
Definitely not hoop like Nick, although I really enjoyed when he was doing that to check on competitiveness. I think for us, it's really about assessing where they're at from a football standpoint. A lot of our conversations are football driven. Coaches are running a lot of those, and we're trying to understand, like, where are they? How do they learn best? Where are they in terms of what they were allowed or exposed to in college? And for some of them, again, it's more background related. So we really tailor our plan to who the individual is and what are some of the answers we need to get. So I would say that it varies based on the prospect.
Are you trying to make them uncomfortable? I don't mean in a confrontational way, but like some guys, you do have questions about background.
Yeah, I think it's part of some of the strategies where you want to figure out how they're going to respond in certain situations. I think there's a fine and healthy balance between building trust, relationships, I would say, because you don't do that in 20 minutes, but really starting to build that relationship so you can unlock more things as you go through the process. Because again, this is one stepping stone to many more steps that we're going to do through the month of March and April. So how can we get the most out of those? And again, it's very tailored to who we're talking to.
I'm talking to Cat Hickman here, the Browns assistant GM. Who leads them? Do you guys rotate? Like Kevin may start or AB may start? Like,
yes, primarily AB and Kevin in terms of starting, but then depending on the type of interview we're going with, the position coach is going to run a lot of the questions too.
What is, and I've asked Kevin this too, what is for you when you evaluate a quarterback, the first thing that you want to see, the most important thing, the non-negotiable for you?
I'll go on field, and I could give you a non-negotiable off the field as well. So let's go on field. On field, really thinking through what kind of Rolodex of situations he's acquired over the years, what kind of experience he's had in terms of decision making, and again, situations he's seen. I think over the course of the year, that's something that, as I evaluated quarterback, I found to be very important in how you can project future success in performance. Not that it's a perfect science, but what kind of situation, decision making process they have been exposed to in college and for how long, I think is pretty important.
Do you think it's necessary to see how they've dealt with failure?
Adversity, for sure. And I don't think that's limited to quarterback. I think,
or maybe more for a quarterback, especially in a leadership position?
Yes, that's a fair point, because they are going to be under the spotlight. It's the most important position in football. So most definitely adversity, like what's the clutch factor? Like, how many games did they bring back the team? How did he respond after an interception? How did he respond in, down moments in the season? Those are all really, really important because they're going to have to deal with that in the pro. Like, every season has its ups and downs. But I really want to emphasize that it's important at every position. I've seen a lot of times in my career players who had limited adversity throughout their entire journey, either football or personal. And not that it's a bad thing, but when it's the first time that it hits you as a pro, we got to be prepared to support them in the best way we can. And that's what this process is about. It's about understanding their journey and being prepared to support them at the next level.
And it's a perfect tie-in, actually, to a guy that just won a Super Bowl, and you were there when Jalen Hurts was taken 53rd overall. He certainly faced adversity, lost a job, transferred, obviously wasn't the first-round quarterback. You guys took him in the second round. he faced that, he beat that, he just won the Lombardi. How do I phrase this? Philosophically, if you go to the divisional round, he was the only guy that wasn't a first-round pick in the divisional round, right? The other 7 were. Are you of the belief, it sounds like a loaded question, I'm not saying we're taking a quarterback at 2, but of the belief that to get there, you kind of got to need one of those guys? Because even though the second-day quarterbacks this year are really interesting, second-day quarterbacks other than Jalen Hurts really don't hit that often. I mean, Dak was a third-day quarterback, but there aren't that many examples.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the thing I would say, I looked at this past playoff. Only 6 of the 14 quarterbacks on the team were an initial top 15 selection with the club they were playing with. So it's to show, I think it shows that, yes, that's definitely a very viable path, but there's different ways to skin the cat. And to your point, some of them may have been first-round pick, but they're with a different team now. So there's different methods of acquisition. And I think that's how we like to look at everything. It's like, how can we look at all avenues? And, you know, there's a fine balance between your needs, between best player available, between the value matches the slot where we're going to pick them. So how do you all put this together and really also make sure that you get great people? The one thing you can't miss on the person. And those are things that we are very intentional and relentless when it comes to figuring out who these guys are both on and off the field.
One more Eagles connection here. Howie Roseman said yesterday that he is maybe uncomfortably obsessed with scouting O-line, D-line, that you can't have enough O-line, D-line. Are you of the same mind?
Absolutely. I think that's something I learned from him when I was at the Eagles. I think they've done a phenomenal job with their line of scrimmage. I think, some of their depth and backup players would be starting for other teams, you know.
And could likely leave for free agency and do that.
Yep. And the thing that I really admire about their process is they say they're about the line of scrimmage and they're going to win in the trenches, but what do they do to make sure they execute that? And they're very intentional. Relentless is a word that comes to mind when I think of Howie in player acquisition and making sure that they take a significant look at how they're going to build the starters and the depth. They have one of the best offensive line coach in the league. So they invest significant resources in the position coach there. They invest significant time in player development with their program, Connor Barwin, who's leading their efforts in making sure that they develop those guys. So there's a lot of relentlessness and intentionality in building the trenches. And I think that's why they've been so successful, is because they that's the path and they don't deviate from it.
I was trying to remember the phrase. It was uncomfortable obsession, he said.
Yeah, I mean, that's perfectly describing him. I think he is like that about building a team. Like, I rarely met someone like him who sleep breeds, you get a text at midnight because he just had an idea and we got to work on it the next morning, and it's fantastic. So I think he's if there was one takeaway I got from him, is how relentless he is about team building. And that's how I aspire to be if I get a chance to run a club.
Do you read the text at midnight? Or because, like, personally, I can't. I don't want it on my nightstand. I'm going to hear the vibration. I put it on the carpet, and then I don't hear the vibration. And then I look at it at 5 or whenever when I wake up. You actually grab your phone at midnight?
If I'm up, yes. If I'm not, it's going to go to the next day. But if I'm up, I'm pretty late night worker because I have young kids. So I normally have to put them down and go back to work for a minute. So if I'm up, yes, I do. It just get my mind rolling though. So sometimes those leads to not much sleep at night, but that's what I love doing. So I definitely don't mind it.
Are you getting, I was talking before, you should get a Super Bowl ring, by the way, because you were there when half this team was built.
I mean, it's credit to them. It's credit to the coaches.
Of course.
And I'm just happy for them.
Of course. But if you got a package on your front door that you had to sign for, that would also be nice. I'm saying it. You don't have to say it. Finally, who's your favorite Canadian in this draft?
That's a great question.
Do you need names? There's the wide receiver at Stanford. There's Nathan Rourke, the quarterback at Indiana. It's not actually. There's Elgersma, although he's probably not going to get drafted. The quarterback who's at the Senior Bowl.
Yes.
It's not a long list this year.
It's not, and it hasn't been. It probably hasn't been as much as in previous years. But what I will say is, I've been incredibly impressed with how much more Canadian talent we can get on this side of the border, and whether they get drafted or they make it onto teams, or even through the CFL scouting process, some guys, make their way for a couple years or whatnot. Like, I mean, Alex Singleton is always going to be one that I was with. I mean, I was not with the Stampeders when he was in the CFL, but I was in the CFL at the same time as him, and then we both went to the Eagles, and I think his story is like so wonderful, and I love to see more Canadian succeed and evolve into the NFL, because there's talent out there too. Not as deep as the pool here, but there's definitely some great talents.
Well, there's plenty of talent on this field when they get going, when the workouts get going, with over 300 players at the Combine. Maybe not like 329 actually working out, but they'll be working out here, and you can keep on following them at clevelandbrowns.com, and Kat Hickman will be here for all of them. Thank you for joining the best pod available.
Thank you.
Great stuff there from Kat Hickman, taking you behind the curtain or into the suite. All the teams have suites here in Indianapolis where they are meeting with the players. Not just the quarterbacks. It's more than just the quarterbacks, but all of the players, over 300 of them at the Combine. Did you notice, through the magic of television, or if you're listening to the audio version, we'll paint the picture for you, we have gone from Lucas Oil Stadium to Jason Gibbs inside the media center. This is a room full, if you can look behind us, of media interviewing media.
That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kyle Brand on Good Morning Football
Yes.
summed up exactly how this goes. Quick conversations, always looking over the shoulder maybe
Yes.
for the next person to
Where
talk
you staying,
to.
when'd you get here,
Yep.
staying for the game. That was for the Super Bowl, but the same rules
thing.
kind of apply.
No, they totally apply.
As well.
100% they apply.
And I can tell you that we are staying at a hotel downtown where we get Marriott points. There's like 10 of them, so good luck figuring that out. Anyway, moving on.
You get a lot of points on this trip.
Yeah, I know. It's a good one.
Good for you.
Andrew Berry spoke. We spoke of his press conference earlier on the pod. Kevin Stefanski did his media session earlier this afternoon. We're taping this on Wednesday. Hit some of the same things AB did. Not a lot of clarity on Nick Chubb. He is going to hit the free agent market. Kevin Stefanski also added no Greenbrier trip this year. There have been 2 previous training camp trips. I know you're upset. To West Virginia. Also, sounds like joint practices. Not one, but more than one. Not ready yet to announce those for later in the summer when we get to training camp. Also, he talked about the quarterbacks. The Browns did meet with Shedeur Sanders today, Wednesday. They have also met with Cam Ward in Indianapolis. Stefanski said he is impressed with both. Different guys, different personalities, but he was impressed with both. What goes into that meeting? Kat Hickman told you a little bit on the board, a little bit like just get to know you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had a number of guys on Cleveland Browns Daily today, and that's what Coach said it himself. This is a process where for some of these guys, it started with the Senior Bowl and getting to know some of those seniors, getting to know them a little bit more here, doing some more research, as we talked about earlier on the podcast, at their homes, where they grew up, at their colleges. And then you'll have the individual visits and the individual workouts, and then you'll have the workouts at their respective universities. So a lot goes into it still, and we're 2 months away. And we're going to jam-pack a lot of stuff here in the next couple months to determine who the Browns eventually end up taking at pick number 2.
And Stefanski did say that he will be on the road for these pro days. Yep. You haven't always seen that. He didn't say which ones. I think it's safe to assume that for the quarterbacks potentially at the top of the draft, and I don't want to speak for him, but those would be ones you would want to attend. March 19th in Colorado, March 30th, tentatively scheduled down there at Miami. What else stood out? He got pressed a lot about, is this a return to the old offense? As he said last month on the Bark Tank, it's not exactly a return because you want to move forward, but I think a lot of the stuff that this team valued a few years ago are going to be things in the offense they value moving forward.
And he said it on Cleveland Browns Daily. Really excited to have Tommy Rees in the fold as his OC. And excited to see what he can do. He's well thought of at the highest levels. Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, a lot of some of the top coaches in the profession with a lot of great things to say about Tommy Rees. Going to get his chance now as the OC, and I think it's going to be a really good thing for Kevin Stefanski in this offense.
And I buried the lead a bit. Stefanski also, much like Andrew Berry, said, don't want to trade Myles Garrett, and used the phrase present and future. He says Myles is a part of the team's present and a part of the team's future. Not going to trade him. Said he has spoken to Myles, but was not going to pull back the curtain as to how those conversations went.
I mean, it's been uniformish since yesterday when AB talked and today when Kevin Stefanski talked. Myles Garrett's a Cleveland Brown, and we're figuring that he's going to be a Cleveland Brown for a few more years to come at least.
But that said, everybody that stops either of us walking down the street in Indianapolis will ask,
yes,
to whom is he getting traded? And I will say the same thing. Not getting traded.
No.
Right?
Not going anywhere, not as far as I know.
If training camp doesn't go well, it's a long offseason. Conversations can be revisited. The team is firm right now, not getting traded. We're also firm that we invite you back to another edition of Best Podcast Available. I mean, there are a lot of NFL memes going around right now. This one might be the best, right? The My Giant, well done, Jeff. That one might be the best. We are back for a Friday edition where the aforementioned Tommy Rees, the Browns' new offensive coordinator, is scheduled to join. Just, how many years ago? 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe 10 years ago, he was getting ready for the Combine. Now he's here as the Browns OC, and I'll be better at math once I remember how old Tommy is. And that will come up on Friday. For Jason Gibbs, I'm Andrew Siciliano. This is, we hope, the best podcast available.